And we're going to be addressed by Keith Carpenter, Highways Asset Manager, Transport for Buckinghamshire, and Gary Fitch, Divisional Director, Asset Management Advisory with Jacobs. Keith, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. We'll come to Gary a bit later, but first I thought I'd give you a little bit of history of Buckinghamshire and the County Council. In 2011, we were much more reactive than we were proactive. We'd seriously underinvested in our assets, mainly our roads, in the previous 6 or 7 years. And of course, we were exposed by those two really bad winters in 2010 and 2011. The result of that was a lot more public awareness and a sudden and quite welcome increase in capital budget. But of course, because we're a county council, we work in a political environment. We get a lot of contact with our politicians, and we have to be reactive to their requirements and to the requirements of the population. So as a member-led authority, we had to balance politics and the public with the needs of a prudent asset management approach. And over the preceding 5 years, we've developed an approach which hopefully we think is fitting in that. We were helped quite a lot by the DFT incentive funding, which kind of sharpened the pencil. And so our framework and culture resulted in 2018 in us getting a certification in ISO 55001, which is the standard for asset management. And we were really pleased with some of the comments that the auditor made. You can see one there, and we feel that we've got this certification in our 5 major asset groups. So how did we achieve this? So we're going to tell you about how we agreed our asset management objectives, how we established our framework, how we developed our training approach, how we rolled it out into team meetings and annual conferences, and we're going to show you a little video at the end. A little bit more about Buckinghamshire, small shire county council, long and narrow, very mixed population. We touch the M25 with adjacent to London, right up to rural areas in the north, and interspersed with a number of quite large and congested market towns. We've got about 3,200 kilometres of road, ranging from the usual high-speed dual carriageways right down to single-track farm lanes. And of course, we've got all the other associated infrastructure, bridges, street lighting, footways, etc. So initially, we tried to concentrate on the basics. We needed to get an understanding of what asset management actually meant in the real world and how we should be adopting the best practices. So we recognised that although many of the things that we did were already quite good, what we didn't have was a clear line of sight from our objectives to what we actually delivered on the ground. We needed to identify and understand the context of the organisation, and by that I mean the corporate desires, the corporate objectives, and we needed to understand how we aligned ourselves from that context to the work on the ground, the work activities, and what things we needed to enable us to do that in the most efficient way. And of course, what we needed to do is understand how we were going to learn from the good practices and the bad practices so that we could continually improve. So back to those asset management objectives. As I said, the first thing we needed to understand was what was our context. So we developed some really simple asset management objectives that were linked to the county's strategic plan. And I think they're understandable and relevant to our area of transportation. And they really are quite straightforward. They're simple things: maintain a safe network, do things efficiently and effectively, optimise the use and protect our natural resources. But they're simple and they can be measured through our performance management framework. And we had them agreed at the highest level. So we took them to Cabinet, the Cabinet approved our policy, and our policy, our asset management policy, is actually now endorsed at Cabinet level and referenced specifically in the county's strategic plan. And of course, in the effort of continual improvement, we've looked at how we should develop those. So in the light of more recent thinking, we're thinking about should we be communicating better? Should we have an objective around communication? Resilient network is a big thing, so we're looking to add that in the next iteration. And of course, around quality. So all of this resulted in our asset management framework, which sets out how our system works. And it's It was described to us by the auditor as the picture on the lid of the jigsaw, told you how things work together. And of course, being a member-led authority, one of the key elements of developing that framework was to make sure that our elected members were fully involved and engaged. So we actually meet each of our elected members every year to discuss carriageway and footway priorities. We agree those priorities with them at that meeting, and we take that opportunity to inform them about our asset management framework, the things that have happened in the last year, the things that we're planning to do in the future years. We hold a regular board, asset management board, which is attended by the Cabinet Member for Transportation and also now the Cabinet Member for Resources. And it's also attended by senior officers. And we take that opportunity to discuss with them what's our policy going to be, what's our latest strategy, how are our treatments. They agree the four-year long-term programme. We've taken them out on site. That's actually a picture of me, the leader of the council and various other members out on site looking at the problems on the ground, trying to explain to them what our different options are, what the treatment options are, how long they will last, what will work best. So we're really engaging with them, giving them real-life scenarios. And we have an annual conference which includes other stakeholders such as parishes, and we inform them about our framework, and we use workshops and exercises. So we've included an exercise around setting a mock capital budget, setting a mock revenue budget, and also become an inspector for the day. So this is our framework, and I'll build it up in part. We've got our context documents on the left-hand side. So those are the county's strategic plan, all boiled down into an annual hour plan, which sets out what we're trying to achieve in the year. We've got an alignment from those context documents through to the activities on the ground. So we've got a policy and a strategy. We've got asset plans that talk about condition data, that talk about what assets we've got, talks about life cycle planning, what will happen with different budget scenarios. We have a medium-term financial plan which sets the budget, and we use the life cycle planning in the asset plans to inform decision makers so they can make the best decision about allocating budget not only to transportation but also between the assets that we've got. And that's been very successful in the past in securing increased funding for perhaps the less noticeable assets like street lighting, footways and the like, compared to the carriageways, which were always the big sort of political hot potato. We've then got things that help us achieve that alignment, things like a data management plan, things like our performance management framework and our communication strategies. And we have a governance structure that escalates risk, escalates performance measures which aren't being achieved, and takes them up the chain so that they can be taken to the right level to be managed properly. So some of our performance indicators are reported to Cabinet. Some of our risks end up at Cabinet so that they can actually make decisions on setting budgets. And we hope that they're all linked together by various processes. So one of the things that we realised when we were preparing for our ISO accreditation was that we've been quite good at talking to our members, talking to our senior managers, and we've been absolutely woeful at talking to our own people. So what we did was we developed a RACI. We gave every activity, someone was responsible, someone was accountable. We developed a training plan so it was clear, which had different levels of training for different people within the organisation. We attended all the team meetings and explained the framework, and we tried to explain to them where they fitted into the framework. And we even gave presentations, toolbox talks to the operatives so that they understood that they were part of a bigger picture. So I'll now swap over to Gary to give you something completely different.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Keith for the opportunity of doing a joint presentation with him. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing I wanted to say is I've no idea why Keith decided to hand over this presentation to me at this point. But I'll let you imagine why that might be. So, as Keith said, we wanted to communicate this framework to the staff at large. And we wanted to communicate it in a way that is accessible to the staff at large. And that is not only the people like me and the asset team, but people that have boots on the ground, that are delivering the services locally to the public, filling the potholes, across the staff in the organisation. And so we engage with our creative services team and to look at how we could make this quite complicated diagram much more accessible. So one of the guys in the creative services team was on the train coming to work one morning, and he was doodling, playing around, and he thought, what if I turn this diagram on its end? Okay. And he looked at that diagram on its end. Perhaps the page fell out of his book and he just kind of landed that way. And he thought to himself, do you know, those context documents at the bottom could be the roots of a tree. And that alignment could be the trunk of a tree. And perhaps the things kind of spreading from that alignment could be the branches and the leaves. So he drew this picture as a way of trying to communicate this particular concept diagram to the staff at large. And we called this the Tree of Buckinghamshire, okay? And it's just a way of making this, this framework much more accessible. And to take that further, to take that into the team meetings, in the depots, in the offices, we wanted to animate this tree, and we created an animated tree video to take to those staff meetings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, would you like to see that video?
The coordinated activities of an organisation to realise value from its assets. More simply, this means making sure that all of our activities are joined up in order to do the right things for the right reasons and get the best value. We all play our part in this. At Transport for Buckinghamshire, coordinating our activities is all about joined up working, knowing how each of us plays our part in managing our assets. This helps us to deliver the aims and objectives of the Council. Our system of joined up working is represented by a tree. The roots of the tree represent the Council's plans and policies and are the basis on which TFB delivers its service. The corporate documents inform the plan of what you are going to do and how. The roots feed the trunk of the tree, which grows straight and true to develop our work through a number of plans, including our asset management policy and plan, individual asset plans, an overall financial plan, our annual business plans, and our plan that set out the work we do every year. The trunk provides a clear path from the Council's original aims all the way through to the work we carry out on the ground. All the work we do is regularly checked, monitored and reviewed through continual improvement and governance. This includes a contract management review in liaison with the Asset Management Board, informing senior management team, operational management board, the strategic board, and ultimately the corporate management team and cabinet. This governance process involves both Transport for Buckinghamshire and the Council working together to always look for ways to improve what we do. If we can invest in and manage our assets better, we can achieve greater value for money and better help the Council meet its aims and objectives. It will lead us to delivering a better service for the people of Buckinghamshire. The acorns falling from the tree sow the seeds for future developments to continually improve our joined-up working. How well we do things is continually measured through a performance management framework, which helps us to understand why some things don't work as well as they should, and change the way in which we do things when necessary. All staff will be provided with the appropriate training so that everyone is clear on the part they play in asset management. Our communication strategy and plans shows how we tell everybody about our joined-up working. The Tree of Buckinghamshire represents TFB's asset management system. It shows how our coordinated activities, our joined-up working, in which everyone plays their part, will better manage our assets, and so help the Council improve its service to the people of Buckinghamshire.
Okay, there were two clear things that we wanted to achieve by that video. One was something that every member of staff could remember, and the Tree of Buckinghamshire was that thing. And the second thing, that it would stimulate a conversation in those team meetings where we could have that conversation with individual members of staff about the role they had to play. And we felt that their role, the role they had to play, was kind of fundamental part of implementing asset management and an asset management framework in the authority. And there were exercises undertaken in those team meetings where people were writing on post-it notes the role they played, whatever it was, whatever role they played in the organisation. And they were all rewarded with a tree pen that said, play your part. And that was the key kind of, strapline we had in the organisation. And I think that was really successful, and the way in which we could, as Keith said, we were liaising well at council level with managers at high level, but we needed to get to the staff. So you've got a slide there, which are the benefits. I think for me, working in partnership with Keith, coming into the organisation and supporting the organisation, what I felt personally was the clear benefit was that it seems like a much more relaxed organisation from what it was when I joined. I think when I joined, it's fair to say the organisation was quite acrimonious. There were kind of lots of quite aggressive demands. It was quite reactive. And I think now that we've implemented this asset management framework, people have a much clearer idea of what the organisation is setting out to do. People have a much clearer idea of what their role is and part they have to play. And it just seems so much more collaborative, relaxed and organised. And whilst we have these kind of standard benefits from an asset management framework, I think that kind of culture that has been embedded in Buckinghamshire is the key benefit for me. And I took a bet that I couldn't get a picture of the Japanese Olympic synchronised swimming team into a presentation at UK Highways, so I've won my £1. I think, just to summarise the comments that I've just made, it's a much more coordinated organisation. Everyone knows the role they have to play, and so our culture was born. Thank you very much.